Hey guys, Guns and Games here, back with another video. Now that I own all four of the Atlantic Firearms Romanian battlefield pickup guns that they offer, I figured it was high time I do a sort of overall collection video showcasing, kind of doing a quick overview of all four of them here. We're going to go in historical order, basically from the Romanian perspective when they adopted each of the said guns from earliest to newest, basically. So we're going to actually start off with the most recent one I bought, a little over a week ago. That is what Atlantic Firearms calls, I think they just call it their Romanian AK47 AKM battlefield pickup fixed stock rifle. This is essentially a representation of the Romanian PM MD63, the Pistolet Mitralet model of 1963. Basically just means automatic rifle in Romanian. Adopted in 1963, it is the Romanian take on the standard Soviet AKM. So giving you some context and some other sort of purchase information first, though. I bought this gun for $7.99 and it came with, of course, all of them actually came with this, a Atlantic Firearms AK47, AK74, basic owner's manual information. And these three that are not the RPK, basically, came with a this travel bag. Basically, open it up. Fascinating. Comes with a little pouch here to store 3 AK mags in. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they send these in all of their basic any AK, any AK products they sell, any AK guns, they'll send you one of these basically. The RPK, on the other hand, came with a big hard case. Pretty cheap one that is not particularly great, but hey, it's something, I guess. But so that's sort of the basic sort of stuff you'll get with each gun. So back to the rifle. So yeah, the PM MD63, this is again the standard Romanian take on the Soviet AKM. Other than you can kind of see maybe the furniture difference, it is basically a one-to-one copy of a standard Soviet AKM with the stamped receiver and whatnot. I have a surplus Soviet-Russian AKM AK-47 sling on it, got from apexgunparts.com. Now going into the actual details, this is built, of course, off of a Romanian parts kit, a PM MD63. This one in particular is a 1986 dated parts kit. This gun entered service and was the first AK, your Kalashnikov gun, to be built and used by Romania, again starting in 1963. And these would be produced and used, they would be produced basically up until the late 80s, maybe even into the 90s, and were basically standard in the Romanian military, both of these, until that replaced it in the late 80s. This particular build at Atlantic Firearms, and it's kind of common with all of them, they have a Green Mountain barrel, a Morrissey receiver, and you're going to get some sort of American fire control group, and then you're going to get a American-made side rail on the other side, and you're going to get an American-made muzzle device. But every other part on the gun will be from a parts kit. This is an all matching one as well. So I will actually come in and do a close-up for you. I did swap off the muzzle device on this one. I have an actual now, it came with a Tapco made one. I swapped that off, put a proper Romanian surplus one on it. But other than that, that's actually all I've done to this rifle. I have not modified it. Also, like I said, I got this gun a little over a week ago. I've not shot it yet, so I can't say, you know, how good it's been or anything. But we'll give you some more close-ups here. There's you can't see it because actually the dust cover on this one is it's kind of messed up. I guess it's a little wonky. It kind of covers the serial, but that says 1986. Again, American side rail. This one has a Century Rack 1 trigger group. And we actually have a little, if I can get up on it, you know, if it would zoom in. Zoom in, please. Thank you. A little bit of trench art there. I think I've got a little bit of trench art under the handguard. There's a bunch of K's written there. Interesting. Go around to the buttstock. Very worn. And that's pretty good. It's well built and everything. But getting back to sort of the historical part, yeah, the only real difference between this and a Soviet one is the furniture. You have this big noticeable thing here. This is what we call the wooden dong hand grip. Other than this sort of unique furniture, which again sort of is a unique thing amongst the Romanian AKs. They were the only ones that really did this. Hungary did somewhat with some of their early stamped AKs like the AKM63 and the AMD65, but kind of interesting. That's what kind of makes the Romanian AKs unique, I guess. But pretty nice gun, gotta say. It's just standard, you know, Soviet grade AK other than the furniture difference. And I've went over all of the differences in the American parts and whatnot. So yeah, and then I guess we'll flip it back over. I'll show you that it is indeed a Morrissey receiver. There you go. All of these are Morrissey receivers, and they all use Green Mountain barrels. The last other difference is that it is not a chrome line barrel. None of these are chrome line barrel except for the RPK. I'll get into that later. But yeah, unlike the real Romanian AKs and Soviet ones as well, these are not chrome lined. They are just chrome mollied or whatever, nitrided. Not a huge deal. Again, if you don't plan on shooting it continuously in like a jungle environment or a bad environment and you're never going to clean it and you're going to shoot corrosive ammo through it and whatnot, it's really not a huge deal. But it is not true to accurate, you know, military accuracy. These were chrome lined, barreled, but not a huge deal. But, and then we'll move on to the one up here. This is the PM MD65. Again, I also paid $7.99 for it. I think I said that, $7.99. This was a little cheaper. This was $6.49. This is just what they called, again, the Romanian battlefield pickup, AK47 AKM underfolder, basically. It was $50 cheaper at $6.49 when I bought it, at least. They might have upped the price, I'm not sure. And same thing, same deal. You know, Tapco muzzle brake, Green Mountain barrel, Morrissey receiver, American trigger group, American side rail. This one has a Tapco trigger group, not a Century. The other three are Centuries. This one's a Tapco, which I thought was kind of weird. And they actually polished the Tapco trigger down so it's smoother. Tapco G2 triggers are somewhat notorious for being very rough and pretty rough actions that are kind of hard to actuate compared to others. But they kindly polished it down for I guess they do that for all their Tapcos they put in their guns. So it's pretty smooth. So thanks for that. This is a 1969 dated parts kit. And it's basically, again, the PM MD65. It was adopted 2 years later in 1965 and has basically the same rough service history as the 63. It served basically into the late 80s, early 90s, and it was replaced again by that one. And it's other than, again, the handguard difference, and there's actually a stock difference too. This gun is pretty much a one-to-one copy of a Soviet AKM, pretty close. Again, with this one, I also took the Tapco muzzle, the sugar scoop off and put a proper surplus Romanian one on. It might look a little different than the original video I did on it. That's because, actually I'll flip it over. I took the original sling I had on it off. I had another one like this one. I had another Soviet Russian one on this one as well, but I took that off and I put a proper Romanian surplus leather sling on it. Pretty cool. I also swapped pistol grips. I took the pistol grip that was on the RPK. I basically just swapped pistol grips. So this one now has the wooden one, and that one's got the Bakelite one. It's a 1969 dated parts kit, and pretty cool. It's all matching as well. I'll do some close-up shots. 1969, it's again all matching. Flip it over. Go over it again. It is the most worn of the four. It's definitely, the parts on that one are definitely the most worn. It is the oldest parts kit of the four, so that kind of makes sense, I guess. But again, other than, again, this handguard here, which is actually different as well, if you might notice. On the PM MD63s, you can see the dong, wooden dong is sort of slanted forward. On the 65s, it was slanted backwards. Not sure why they did that. On the 86s, it was forward as well. And the short-barreled carbine versions, the 90 and the 94, were like that as well. But they went in a reverse direction on the 65s for some reason. Not sure why they did that. The other difference is the stock. They actually stuck with the original milled stock design on the AKS47, which was the standard milled AK-47. This is a milled stock. It's all milled, solid block. With the AKMS, which was again the underfolded version of the AKM, stamped, they also used not only a stamped receiver, of course, but they used a stamped buttstock or a stamped underfolder as well. So it was a lot thinner and lighter, and it had sort of ribs, kind of like the magazines. That gives it apparently roughly the same level of durability and hardness, while being a lot lighter and easier and cheaper to produce. So that's what the Soviets did with their AKMSs, which is what this is basically. But the Romanians decided to stick with the original milled design for some reason. I don't know why that is. It's kind of strange. The design itself, I guess it's a lot sturdier and feels sturdier, but you can see there's a lot of play up and down, even when it's locked in. That was kind of typical of the original milled design. There's only one locking lug on this stock. So let me flip it back over. So again, you just push that button in to unlock it. That's all it's locked. It's just all locked in over here. There's no locking lug on the other side. And so they tend to have some play sometimes. The stamped design has a locking lug on both sides. And a lot of that sort of play issue is removed on the stamped underfolders. So it's not a big deal. When you shoot it and you have it nice and tight in your shoulder, it doesn't move at all or anything, but it is kind of interesting. That's another sort of weird thing the Romanians decided to do for some reason. I don't quite know why, but that is the PM MD65, and again, these would stay in service all the way into the 80s, into the 90s. Midway in between those two, the 63 and the 65, they also adopted their take on the RPK, and it is a long boy, so I apologize, I gotta get way up here. This is the PM MD64, or the Romanian equivalent of the RPK. It was adopted in between both of them in 1964, and is basically it's a one-to-one copy of the RPK. This gun was $8.99 back when I bought it, and I think that price has since then crept up. It's like almost $1,000 now, and they're not. And they don't. When Atlantic gets them in stock, they don't get them in for very long. But this RPK is virtually no different than a standard Soviet one. This is basically a one-to-one copy of an RPK. So it's a 1977 dated. I'll get up close, do a nice overarching. It's not matching. The dust cover is mismatched, which is actually pretty typical. As sort of an inconsequential part like a dust cover, you tend to see that sometimes. But, and again, like I said, I swapped pistol grips. This thing also came with a Tapco sugar scoop device as well. I took that off. I put a proper Romanian surplus muzzle thread protector nut, which is what this thing would have used. The RPK actually never used the sugar scoop slant brake. They used the thread protector. So, but it's just it's a typical RPK. It's in this country, it's basically about as close to really the only way you can get a true proper RPK in this country. I'll go over some close shots. I got a little bit of trench art there. Kind of cool. Again, Century trigger group, American rail, Morrissey receiver, Green Mountain barrel. This one, like I mentioned earlier, is chrome lined. So the RPKs are chrome lined. I don't know why they didn't decide to chrome line the other three, but they chrome lined the RPKs for some reason. I don't know why. It's nice. I mean, that's cool. I'd rather have it than not have it if you're going to do it. But they did it. So, I don't know. Interesting. Also, this is a genuine surplus Russian RPK sling I put on it. So, and I also have a genuine 40-round Romanian surplus magazine in it. Got that off of Apex Gun Parts as well for like 30 bucks. They're a little bit more expensive. And that's what all the guns come with. All of the guns will come with a surplus metal magazine. So, but it's basically, again, like I said, it is a legit one-to-one copy of an RPK, a Soviet one. So, pretty neat, actually. I actually have a drum for it as well. I'll have to put you down, actually, though, but I do have a actual genuine drum magazine for it as well. And this can be a little bit of a pain. I'm going to sit it up and deploy its bipod too. Let me do that real quick. Get it up there in its full glory. There we go. And I'll come around, show you that side. That is a genuine surplus Romanian 75 round drum, about $100. Not cheap, but I thought it was well worth it for that. So, but it's an RPK. You know, it's basically just a larger AK. You have a bipod, of course. You have a longer 23-inch heavier barrel to accommodate more sustained fire so it doesn't overheat. Slightly different redesigned handguard. It's a lot bigger and thicker. You have a thicker, longer receiver with a supported bulge here to support the heavier barrel. You have a different rear sight that is adjustable for windage. You just pull it out and twist it. You can adjust for windage, unlike any other, a typical AK rear sight, which is just adjustable for elevation. You have elevation and windage on the RPK. And then instead of a 1mm thick stamped receiver, you have a 1.5, and it's a little bit longer. And that, because the receiver is longer, that means the bolt carrier group has to travel farther back, so the rate of fire is a little bit lower in if you can get one in fully automatic. This one is not, obviously. And we have a buttstock that was completely lifted off of the RPD, which came before it. Pretty neat. Very heavy. Fully loaded with a drum. This thing's like almost 20 pounds. It's like 18. I think it's like 18 pounds with a fully loaded drum. Pretty hefty. So, again, $8.99. They're not in stock right now. These aren't in stock either. Both of these are. And when these come in stock, like I said, man, they do not last for very long. They'll be in stock for... They'll get them in stock about every month or two, and they'll only be in stock for 1 to 3 days at the most, 3 at the most, usually like 1. So, but again, $8.99, and again, I believe the price has crept up though. So that's the RPK. This thing would be replaced in 1993 with the PA MD93, conveniently enough. That is basically a 545 RPK, an RPK 74. So in 1993, the Romanians adopted a 545 chambered RPK. Basically the same gun, but again, just in 545. So a thinner barrel, different caliber. They also incorporated a new muzzle device that they adopted previously on the PM MD90, which I'll talk about in a second. It's a kind of an AR style birdcage flash hider. And they also generally switched over to using the crutch folder stock that this thing uses. So that was adopted in 93 and is still in service to this day for the most part. So that's that. Moving on, we'll move on to the final one in the collection, the PAMD86. This is essentially the Romanian take on the AK74, chambered in 545. The export or proper civilian name of this gun was the AKMS 74. On Atlantic Firearms website, it is the Romanian battlefield pickup AKMS 74, basically. I bought this gun for $825. I do believe the price has crept up to like $875 now, I think, though. These are still in stock. They are in stock as of yesterday when I checked. Imagine they're still in stock right now. And it's, again, basically, like I said, a 545 chambered AK. Essentially, again, like I said, the Romanian equivalent of the AK-74, even though it's really not. This is essentially really just a AKM chambered in 545. It does not incorporate the 90-degree gas block of the AK-74. It retains the 45-degree of the AK-47 and AKM. So it's really just a 545 chambered AKM, not really a true AK-74. And it's got some noticeable differences. One is the stock. All of them were used this. There was never a true fixed buttstock like this that was ever used on this gun. These are still in service to this day with the Romanian military as well. So, but we call this commonly the crutch folder. You just push this button in to fold it. This might be tricky. Might be tricky with one hand. There we go. You just do that. Folds up to the side. Push that in. This stock design was pioneered by the East Germans on their AK-74s. And the Egyptians also used it as well. The Egyptian design was a little different looking, but same concept. And the Hungarians actually used it as well on the AMD 65. Pretty similar design too. They all folded to the side. They were very thin, not very comfortable, not very ergonomic, more utilitarian in design. This gun also, again, supports the wooden dong pistol grip made of wood. And we've got a little bit of a difference here. Instead of wood, we have a Bakelite upper gas tube cover. A little different. Again, the gas block difference. The muzzle brake is basically a standard AK-74 design, but it is a little thinner and a little longer than normal, than your typical AK-74 muzzle brake. As far as build goes, this is once again a Morrissey receiver, green mountain barrel, non-chrome line. We do have an actual surplus muzzle brake though this time. We have a Century Rack 1 trigger group. That one, I forgot to mention, is a Century Rack 1 trigger group as well. American side rail. It came with an American pistol grip. It was a brand new, kind of bright, kind of more colored like that, sort of. Or I would say maybe more like this. It was colored kind of like this. They threw in a genuine Bakelite surplus one for free. It was an option you could choose. So I took it and threw that back on there. So I do have a genuine surplus one on it now. Century Rack 1 trigger group again. Other differences between this and a typical AK74, the magazines. Instead of using like Bakelite magazines, the Romanians stuck with the sort of typical steel mag design. These are pretty expensive. They're about 40 bucks. Not incredibly cheap. Bakelites are 545 Bakelites are probably even worse. But another noticeable difference is the upswept charging handle. As you can see, unlike every other AK pretty much ever made, this one has an upswept charging handle, which is pretty interesting. To my knowledge, it's the only Kalashnikov derivative or platform rifle that's ever done that. And kind of weird. And it's really actually pretty nice. It's helpful. It allows you to get some more leverage on the charging handle. And I think generally, charge the gun a little easier. So also let me show you this front sight picture. The front sight posts are extended, unlike any other AK. This thing has slightly longer front sight protectors. I don't know why. I guess it's just there to help you get a little bit better of a target picture. That's another noticeable difference there as well. But that's about it there, I guess. We'll do some zoom-in shots. It is a 1991 dated parts kit, all matching. Again, these were adopted in 1986 and are still in service to this day. If you want to see pictures of it, just Google like Romanian troops in Afghanistan or Iraq, and you'll see them carrying these on patrols and stuff. Zoom in, give you a nice glancing shot. Parts kit's in pretty good shape. A lot of wear on the wood here, which is interesting. 1990, all matching. There you go. Pretty cool. There was also a short-barreled version of this called the PAMD 94, coincidentally adopted in 1994. It's basically the same gun, but it has a shortened barrel down to 12.5 inches. It's basically kind of, well, it's not really a crink. Crinks are like 9-inch barrels, so it's not really a crink. It's just kind of a shortened carbine that was used by special forces, tank crews, airplane crews, anyone that needed a shorter rifle, basically. They also did the same thing with the ones over here. They did make a short-barreled version of these as well. That was the PMMD 90, entered service in 1990. Both of the short-barreled versions are still in service as well. They don't really use either of these anymore, but they do use the short-barreled ones still in decent numbers. And they actually still use both of these in limited numbers as well. But it's basically just a PMD 63 with a shortened barrel, also 12.5 inches. And it uses that AR-15 style birdcage flash hider that I talked about on the PMD 93 RPK. And it also uses the crutch folder style stock as well. Crutch folder stock, shorter 12.5 inch barrel, the AR style flash hider. That's the PMMD 90. We do get PMMD 90 parts kits in this country as well. It also, I think, uses a shorter gas operating system, and it uses a gas block front sight combo. So the front sight is also on the gas block as well. I think that's what this one, the PAMD 94 does as well. We do get those parts kits of the 90s in the country, actually, but again, you can't make them true to form really because it would be an SPR, so you don't see a lot of them. And that's why I don't have one, because I don't feel like going through all the hassle of getting an SBR. I might one day, I might tack brace it or something instead of crutch folding it. I might get one and like tack brace it or pistol brace it or whatever. And then maybe get around to maybe jumping through the hoops and SBRing it one day. But that's basically the collection and sort of the history and rundown and some of the other variants I don't have here on the table. Thoughts and concerns. Again, I've shot the RPK, the 86, and the 65. Haven't shot the 63 yet. They all worked beautifully, 100% reliable, hundreds of rounds through all of them. The RPK has been beautiful. I have zero complaints about it. Zero. I have two minor quips with these. One on the 65 was the mag catch was too tight, and I had to file it down slightly to actually be able to, you know, get the magazines out easily. It took a few minutes. Not a huge deal. The 86 has a very tight receiver. And as you can see, I can barely get it out. You can see it really wants to fight me with one hand, and there's no way I'm going to be able to get it back in with one hand. So, and it doesn't click in like, you know, on a typical rock and lock, you know, can I do this with one hand? Ooh, let's see. You see, it clicked. This one does not click. It is too tight, and it won't click. It's not a huge deal. I'm definitely not going to have any reliability problems forever, and it hasn't. But it makes mag changes a little difficult, more difficult than it should be. Not a huge deal, though. Maybe it'll wear out over time, and maybe I just need to file the mag well somewhat. I'm not sure. Or maybe I just need to file the mag catch a little bit too. Haven't done it. It's not a huge deal. So the only other real complaint is on the 63. They sent me a magazine that was absolutely drenched in cosmoline. That was kind of annoying. They didn't do it on these three, but they did it on this one. And that I had to clean that out, which wasn't a huge deal because I bought a 4-pack from them anyway of 4 surplus magazines at the same time, and those were drenched in cosmoline as well. So I just, you know, cleaned them all together. But you gave me 3 clean ones there. Why did you give me a filthy cosmoline one here? It just kind of didn't make sense. That's pretty much about it. That's about all my complaints. There was another one. Getting the dust cover off on this one's a little difficult initially. Instead of just pushing straight in and popping off, I have to push in and then down to pop the dust cover off on this one. Kind of weird. And it took me a little while to figure that out when I was first disassembling it, so I was kind of freaking out a little bit. But other than that, these guns are beautiful. They're not too expensive. Again, $699, $649, $899, $825. I think they're well worth the money, especially the RPK. A new like Century one's like $1,500, so well worth the money. These two are still in stock. I highly recommend you go buy one. And that's going to about do it, folks. I am Guns and Games. I hope you've enjoyed the video. 10 out of 10. Go buy them all if you can. These two, all of them, you know, just buy them all. I am Guns and Games. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.